Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn along with Mark Hostetler. And we're talking about the power of your words today. And I read this verse. I guess sometimes I'm looking for another verse and then I stumble onto another verse and then that verse just catches my attention.
Yeah, it happens so many times with me.
When it comes to the Bible, there's always something catching my interest.
Yeah.
In Proverbs 22:11, the one who loves a pure heart and who speaks with grace will have the king for a friend. So I thought, all right, well, that's a pretty cool verse because the king's going to be your friend. Probably a lot of people would like the king to be their friend. And it says one who loves a pure heart and speaks with grace. And I like the idea of just speaking with grace. And I think that really captured my attention. So that brought me to the topic of the power of your words and what they should be. And so it says that what they appreciate is the person with a pure heart. And the person with a pure heart is somebody who has true motives. They're not going to give you flattery. They're going to be honest. Their heart's just true. And to have those friends that are genuine are the ones that we're really seeking, because the ones who love you genuinely and they love you genuinely, whatever they say, you can trust. Whatever they're doing, they don't have any ulterior motives for it. They just love you. And when you love somebody like that, you just want the best for them. There's no ulterior motives.
That means a lot to you. When you know that you're going to get truth, you're going to get truth in love. They're going to be gentle about it, but they're going to give you truth.
Right.
They're going to speak to you graciously.
Right.
Not harshly. I want people around me like that, and I want to be like that for people is when I see something happening in your life and I know that's leading you down the path to nowhere.
Right.
Good. I want to be the friend that's going to speak into your life and say, hey, with gentleness, right? The word of God says those who are spiritual,
right,
go to them and correct them, So I think it matters, man. I mean, the power of words. Words have amazing power to either crush or build up.
Right.
And we want to use them to build up.
Yeah, you want to have the words of life, right? But the words have beauty and charm, and that's what that means. That's what grace means. It is a word, it means beauty or charm. And it's not saying speak grace, it's just saying speak with grace. So I'm going to speak with beauty, and my words should be beautiful. And I was thinking about, somebody who, could be an artist or a great photographer, and they're wanting to bring things of beauty, or maybe they're a great decorator, and they just like to find things of beauty and set them around. It's kind of a cool concept that your words can be that beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Like when that person speaks, there's such a beauty, such a charm to their words when they hear them, because that's just how we're structured, and that's going to come from a pure heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reading Charles Spurgeon lately in devotions and stuff, and these older writers, they seem to have this knack of finding the right word that like fits perfectly what they're saying.
Right.
And taking time just to kind of sit on it, like, not quite that word. Vocabulary meant so much. Like they want the perfect word that's gonna set right in there. And
because people need to hear beautiful words. People need to hear words that are filled with grace. It's super, super important. And it reminds me of where we're told to speak the truth in love. It's not just speak the truth. It's speak the truth in love.
In love, yeah.
Right. Jesus Christ came full of grace and truth. Yeah, he came full of truth, but he also came full of grace. And so how I believe really is the delivery. Part of beauty is not just the choice of vocab, although I think it's part of it, but it's also the delivery. It's how am I delivering those words? My wife has said it so many times. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Bill, it's not. No, it wasn't. I only said this. I just said this. This is it. This is it. In word, I just said this. She goes, it's not what you said.
Yeah.
It was how you said it.
Yeah.
There's some truth to that.
Yep. And we want people, not just kings, we want all people to be graced by our words. You know what I'm saying? We want them to be uplifted and charmed. And it's a beautiful thing, man. It's an opportunity for every one of us. We can, like I said, we can crush or we can build up. Why not take the time and the energy to build up?
Right.
Well,
speak with grace. So that's really what we're talking about right now is speak with grace. And Colossians 4:6 says, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. And that's if somebody was giving a scurrilous charge against Christianity, or somebody was asking you a question, why are you doing this, or why don't you do that? and that you could answer them with grace, because there wasn't any point in saying it harshly or meanly or rudely or cocky or anything else. No, just when you talk with grace, and those words are going to go so much better. You get so much better. You get more with honey than vinegar. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah. Right? I mean, so to me, the idea of returning insult for insult, doesn't work. Right. It says don't return insult for insult. You want to speak in a way, and actually the verse right before that says conduct yourself with wisdom. Mm-hmm.
Now, are you saying the verse before the Colossians?
Yeah, it's Colossians 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5 says, conduct yourself with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of every opportunity. We have to look at when we are able to speak into somebody's life as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. This is a chance now for us, especially for Christ followers, to speak in a way that's going to point that outsider to Christ and help them to see a gracious, beautiful, charming answer to their kind of questions or rebukes or scoffing at Christianity,
and taking it even closer to home, to your own family, to your own spouse. Mm-hmm. You got, to me, when I see something like this too, I want to think about the people that are in my closest circle. Like, how am I impacting them? Mm-hmm. As opposed to, like, somebody asks a question, it can be nice. It's easy to be nice to a stranger. It's a lot harder to speak with grace to the people you speak with all the time, because then you get a little sloppier, a little looser. So I would say, for me, looking at the opposite is a good way to look at, speaking in grace. What would the opposite be, and what's going to get me in trouble? Yeah. And I would say, like, not speaking in grace would be if my wife asked me a question, I act annoyed by it, or I act frustrated. Like, why are you asking me that? And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You just answer in a way, and they're thinking, of course, why do you even bother asking this guy? You're being a jerk, because you didn't say it with any grace. Like, you didn't say it with any beauty. You didn't say it with any charm.
That's right.
Right.
And you know what? We remember that.
Right.
And the next time we want an opinion, the next time we want to talk, the next time we just want to be around someone, that person's probably not going to be on the front of our mind to be around, because we're hurt by it.
Right.
Sticks and stones break your bones, words will never hear. That's a garbage line. I mean, words, there's people in our counseling offices because of words that were spoken over them when they were little children. You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, words have power and they last. People remember I agree 100% with you. Not only your words, but how you're told those words. Right. The sharpness of your tone. If you seem irritated with me every time I talk to you, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You know what I mean? It's just.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Not you. I'm looking at you, but I'm just like, if there's this always this kind of tension every time I'm talking to you, and you just who wants to be around that?
No, people walk around people like that. That's a fact. Absolutely. Even in a church setting, people will try to skirt the person who's a little bit rude, a little bit gruffer, this person they don't feel is willing to really listen and isn't full of grace when they speak. They're wanting to go around. And part of being grace is understanding and listening and being helpful to what the person's trying to do. I'm speaking with grace. I'm trying to help you out. I'm here, not being maybe somebody in the way of it. But here's another thing. To me, the happiness, the smiling, if you walk into a room and your wife, for me as a guy, my wife smiles, I know all is well. If I'm talking to her and she's all straight faced, even if she doesn't mean anything by it, like if she could be just thinking about the first man on the moon, for all I know, she's thinking about what we're going to have for dinner 3 days from now. But if it looks serious or sour, step away. Step away.
Your mind's like, wait a minute, what happened? What did I do? How did I? I
know I did something.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised. I usually do. What was it? No, but honestly, even when I have no clue why she would be upset. Even if she looks upset, then that's a little bit off-putting. So I have found that a good thing to do when somebody comes in the room is just smile. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. What's going on? You walk by people, be smiling, because if you're always walking by and you've got this gruffy look on your face, I don't even think that's a word, but you know what I'm saying. Gruffy.
Gruffy. I mean, let's look it up. Power of words.
Don't be gruffy. Don't be gruffy with me. Yeah. No, I feel like if you kind of that sourpuss look on your face all the time, I don't think that's good either, because it's not looking beautiful. It's not looking, there's nothing charming about that, to be honest with you. If you're going to speak with charm, there's nothing charming about a sour look on your face.
Absolutely.
There's nothing charming about looking grumpy or looking frustrated or looking annoyed, because even if one of my big problems is I can't hear very well, so then my wife will think I'm not listening. You know, it's always funny. You're not listening. I'm like, no, not listening is willful. I didn't hear you. There's a big difference between not hearing you and not listening. Not listening is a choice. Now that I do know you're talking, now this is not listening. Okay, now I'm choosing not to. No, just kidding. But no, if there's something, if she detects something sour in me, if I didn't even really hear what she said, or you know, I comment back on something else, or she thinks I have like a quizzical look on my face, forget it, right? Because we just have to be so careful. A lot of times it's not even on purpose. It's just incidental. But other times maybe a little more purposeful, but we're not charming. Right. We're not.
You remember, was it Nebuchadnezzar? No, it wasn't. It was Nehemiah. He wasn't with Nebuchadnezzar, but when he came into his presence, he had to have a certain...
Artaxerxes.
That's who it was. And he was a cupbearer, right? And he came in, and what did the king do? He noticed that Nehemiah wasn't as happy or joyful around him, as his countenance was changed. Why? Because something was bothering him.
Right.
He didn't have to say anything. The king noticed it.
But you didn't dare come to the king's presence with that look on your face.
Exactly. You didn't, because the king didn't want anything to do with it. It goes along with your first verse here, you know. The king wants people who are going to be around him with grace and a good countenance, and you know, now this doesn't mean you have to put on a face. You know what I'm saying? If you're legit, you know, bothered by something, you need to be able to speak to somebody about it. But man, I mean, speak in a way and act in a way that people are going to want to be around you.
But I think too, you have to, sometimes you do have to put on the happy face, like they say. Sometimes, like if I had a problem and something bad happened and I'm going to pray over somebody who's having heart surgery, I mean, that's not the time for me to dump all over them. You know what I'm saying? So I have to come on and put a strong front on, you know, even if my heart is hurting. You know, there are times where, you know, you're going to have to put on the countenance that, hey, that has nothing to do with this family, and you don't need to bear them down with your burdens right now. So I think sometimes it's not being fake, it's just being polite. You know, that, hey, I'm not here to bring you down, so I'm not going to come, you know, lurping in and, you know.
Solomon says there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I don't believe in being fake, but I do believe in being positive. I mean, I'm very blunt, but also you have to consider when you're talking to somebody, you have to always consider what can they really handle right now, because some people need to be more, I shouldn't say scolded, but it's like straight up rebuke. Other people have weak knees and they need to be strengthened. And I learned that in seminary. Hey, sometimes a person kind of needs that straight up, hey, knock it off. Sometimes other people, their problem is their weak need. You know, they're just, they're weak. They're in a vulnerable spot. They need to be lifted up. Yeah. So I can't always talk to people the same way. It really depends on what they're going through. And when you have the words of grace, then you'll know what to do and what to say. But when I do speak to an issue, I tend to get to it. Like if I'm going to say it, I'm just going to say it, because I'm not a humongo beat around the bush person. Right. Unless sometimes things are so personal, private, you know, maybe I don't say it. Even to my wife, sometimes if I'm not going to tell her about every ache and pain I have. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk about it. You know, it's just me. That's just kind of who I am. But when I do talk, I tend to be pretty blunt.
I like your point, though, going back to like knowing who to talk to and how to talk to them. You know, if you look at your children, just about every one of your children is going to be like, you're going to talk to them differently, especially in the area of discipline.
Right.
Because, you know, like my youngest, he, you know, if I say certain things in a certain way, that's just as bad for him as you know, when I would spank one of my other children, like just what I said and how I said it was just as bad as a spanking. Right. You know, melts them. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to do, it's enough, just the way you say it, how you say it. I think, people are like that, and just in general.
Yeah. And you don't pile on the repent either. I mean, when somebody's repenting or they're already remorseful, I don't really need to add to it.
Yeah.
If they're being, I don't know if you want to say reluctant, recalcitrant, rebellious, then sure, you might need to be a little bit heavier. But here's the verse I was referring to, and I'm a little brain dead today, so I had to go look up the verse. A lot of times I could remember it, but not today. And we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak.
Where is that?
And that's 1 Thessalonians 5:14. I really like that because admonish the idle. So the people that are idle, they're not really doing what they're supposed to do. You just rebuke them. You be straight up. But the faint-hearted, they need to be encouraged. And then the weak, they just need helped. Like some people like the weak they just need to be picked up. So the faint-hearted, the people who are discouraged need to be encouraged. The people rebellious need to be rebuked. It just depends on what the person's going through. You can't always rebuke. Like some person's, oh man, I'm having a really hard day. Oh, you know what? You should just trust the Lord. What is wrong with you? Where is your faith? Well, sometimes they don't need that. Sometimes they don't need a rebuke. They need to be encouraged. Hey, you know what? You're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. So I always love that kind of threefold approach. So they taught us in counseling, you can't handle every situation the same way. And that's true of our families. Like you said, of your one son versus another son, how you talk to one, you may not be able to talk to the other. So you just have to learn each one and what that person is going through and try to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit so that, again, our words are full of grace and they're seasoned with salt because salt's pleasant, right?
So what does this take, Bill? The word that's coming to my mind is intentionality. Every one of us needs to be intentional with the way we open up our mouth and the way we engage with other people.
Right.
Be intentional, man. Don't make it all about yourself. Don't make it all about what's going to make you feel better. Serve the other person you're talking to and do so with grace, man.
Right.
I mean, because I love that passage. I'm glad you brought that passage up, man, because it's important. It's
well, I think too, when you're thinking about words of grace and charm and beauty it's easy to be negative. It's not hard. If you want to find negative people, you're not going to have to look very far. Sometimes you don't need to look further than yourself. And I'm not saying that I can't be negative because I can. I would say descriptively, like I'm real positive. Like, hey, you can do it. You're okay. Overall, I'd say I'm a very positive person.
Absolutely.
But if something's bothering me, then I see that's where, like, if something's really on my heart, I'm very open. So if something's troubling me, I'm going to spill it out.
That's how I am. They say wear it on your sleeve.
Yeah, it's like just you're probably, especially like you're going to hear about it. The people closest to me are going to, they're really going to hear about it. But I still have to be sensitive to not overdo it. Just be sensitive about how much you're saying about things because even I'm not afraid to admit it. And I've only learned it really, recently. But my wife would attest to it fully. I can be obsessive if I get my mind on something. Like I can lock down on it like a snapping turtle. You know what I'm saying? Where once I bite down on something, like I might not let go. But that's not always a good thing, So I just have to be careful that in my own ways of thinking or my own troubles sometimes in my mind that I don't have to dish that out to everybody. Like I don't have to serve the whole table my troubles. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't have to come into the office and serve Becky, something bad that happened or serve you something bad that happened. And just because sometimes like that tone you set, it's not good. And I have learned, and I'm not perfect at this, I'm talking to myself too, I'm not perfect at it. It's just, you try to learn and you're trying to grow as you go through life and realize, I probably don't need to talk about that. I probably don't need to say that.
You're talking this from a personal angle and I appreciate that vulnerability, but I'm telling you, I am, and I'll bet you everybody watching or listening right now is nodding their head going, I got to work on that because it's something that you just got to work on. It's, you said obsessive. There's definitely things I can obsess about if it's on my mind.
Right.
I got to tell somebody about it. I'm a processor. I this is the way we process it by telling others and whatever. I mean, so
it
I
helps you when you
that.
see it in your kids. Like when you see it and you realize they're just a chip off the old block. They might have taken it to a new level, but I'm like, I know where they got that from.
Wow. Yep.
Constant, my daughter, it's almost cute, but every time I see her, she'll tell me the same thing. I'm not going to do this. Okay. Don't blame me. I wouldn't do it either. Next time I see her, I'm not doing it. I'm like, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either.
Right.
This is 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later. My wife's, texting my wife the same thing. I'm not going to do this. Get it? But that's on her mind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's on her mind. And there's a certain insecurity with not her as a person, but I'm saying as far as her future, she's not really sure ultimately what she's going to be doing or where she's going to be. And in this time of uncertainty of having a new child, she really thinks about that. And I get it because yes, you should be thinking about this. You should be praying about this every day because there's something unsettled in your world right now.
Yeah.
And you want it settled because you're a mama. And you've got a child that you're concerned about. So I get the weight that she feels.
This is where it most happens for me is big decisions. Right. I will talk to you. I talk to my wife. I talk to my brother-in-law. I talk to this person. Talk to that person.
Which is good.
Trying to get
right.
But it's good up to a point and then finally when somebody says, "Hey, like." Just make the decision and go with it. You know what I mean? Goodness. Like, come on, and actually one time was the truck and I was talking to you about it and you're like, Mark, you're not going to do anything right now, right. And I needed to hear that.
Right.
Like you're not doing anything right now.
Right.
Don't do nothing,
Right.
So.
And did that work?
It did.
Right. That
Praise God.
Work. Yeah.
Because, but I guess I'm just trying to, sometimes you're hunting for what you want to hear.
Right.
And you end up finding what you need to hear, you know, and I like that, so there's a positive, but it can exasperate somebody. It can exasperate the situation.
I think it's important for us to realize, and we got to go, we're going to go on, we'll talk about this in another podcast too, but it's just how much people need sometimes guidance and direction. How people really need a word sometimes, and they just when they really don't know what to do. And sometimes we think it doesn't really matter. And I'm guilty of that too, thinking it doesn't matter what I say. What does it matter what I think? But sometimes, like you said, well, that mattered that day, which I would have never thought about that story again if you hadn't just brought it up.
It mattered to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've thought about it a few times since, but. It's one of those things where you don't realize how important either that kind word is, or you don't realize how important that timely word is. And just somebody needing guys, I don't know what to do. Well, have you tried this? Have you looked into this? Oh, wow. I've never, ever thought about it from that perspective. And it turns out to be something, to me, those are the words of grace. Those are the words that are beautiful. The words have triumph. They're actually helping,
and they have a lot of power. They have a lot of power. I mean, they make a difference. I know we got to go, and I'm looking at this last verse, Proverbs 15:1. I love this verse. A gentle response turns away anger, and a harsh word stirs up wrath. The power of our words matters. That's the bottom line.
No,
and sure. We want to be the people that speak in a way that's gracious and gentle, and they turn away bad behavior.
Right. And to not spill out unnecessary negatives. So let's put it that way. I don't really need to cloud the room or ruin somebody's dinner. I mean, I've had dinner ruined sometimes just by the negativity of other people around me, and you're just, I don't like the food. I don't like this. I don't like that. And you're just like, please stop. Just please. If I'm at a restaurant and somebody takes me there and I don't like it, I keep my fat trap shut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything that's going to detract or move away from a happy mood, because everyone's happy. They're joyous. My tea's the wrong temperature. I don't like it at all. I hate it. They actually put rice in tea. I didn't even know how disgusting that could be. I'm not going to be that way. It's just.
I'll tell you what, you're talking right now, and I'm getting convicted because, man, I do that a lot. I can come at it from negative, man.
Yeah,
if I'm at a restaurant, I want it to be delicious. I want it to be good. I want my service to be good. And if it's not, I'll let everybody know. And it's like I don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to do that. I think sometimes we just don't have to. Words of beauty and charm. You have the king as a friend. You all have a great and an awesome week.